Good afternoon and welcome to the Arkansas Science Teacher Association talk. Today I am Hope Bragg. I'm an instructor of 4-H youth development with our University of Arkansas Systems Division of Agriculture, and today I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit about Arkansas 4-H's approach to using STEM education and archaeology to reach our youth and opportunities we have for educators across the state of Arkansas. This meeting is being recorded, so if you show up late into the session, just be aware that we are sharing. All right, bear with me. Here we go. So digging 4-H, an innovative approach to STEM education, is just a way that we use archaeology to reach our 4-H youth throughout the state of Arkansas. 4-H is a youth education component of the University of Arkansas, and we're with the Division of Agriculture. Many people think of agriculture primarily, chickens, cattle, horse, when they think of 4-H, but 4-H actually has 3 mission mandate areas that we are called to reach, and that would be citizenship, leadership, STEM education, and leadership. So let me begin and see if this works. Page up. And there we go. So where does 4-H fit into teaching and learning about archaeology? So 4-H was formed over 100 years ago as a way to teach farmers through their children. We all know that as a parent myself, I don't like being outcooked by my daughter. My husband doesn't like having his kids outperform him in activities. And so 4-H was a way for scientists in the land-grant universities to get their new methods across to farmers on practices like crop rotation or fertilization or even seed source selection through the simple act of training the kids to out-farm their parents. And by doing that, then the parents would adapt and adopt the methods that their children were doing. Oops, now it's working. And through that, so we were teaching farmers through their children, and the beauty of 4-H is that we are nationwide and actually now international, and we use this life skill method of using our hands, our heart, and our health, that's what our 4-H's stand for, in order to give life skills to our youth in the community. And my interest in 4-H and doing archaeology stemmed from, I started in 4-H 7 years ago in a rural county, Deshay County in southeast Arkansas, where we did not have any of the traditional 4-H topics, like I said earlier, the cattle, the chickens. We were out on the Delta, and primarily our row crop agriculture. We had plenty of rice and soybeans, cotton, but as far as these traditional avenues for our youth to learn about archaeology, they were far and few between. But what we did have in the Delta is a preponderance of cultural history and things from traditional plantation houses, Indian mounds, Native American sites abounded throughout that county. And so I took it as an opportunity to expand our program in order to give youth a quality educational program based upon the resources that we have. And it all started with a quad day event that we held out. This is at the Taylor House. It is now a museum operated by the University of Arkansas Monticello. But at the time we were just starting to set this up. And so if you look in the back beyond these children, you can see where there's an actual excavation going out. And so we brought in youth from Ashley, Deshay, Chico, and Drew counties, all to one location, where we then proceeded to teach them about archaeology and prehistoric lifestyles. And so they did things like games. They learned from the archaeologists, so they actually got out in their field and then got the opportunity to screen for artifacts with archaeologists from across the state. Eventually led to some of our 4-H youth as teens becoming trained to do excavations with the archaeologists. They also learn things like pioneer cooking and games. And again, these were geared kind of towards all levels. So 4-H is open to all youth ages 5 to 19. And so we try to shoot towards the middle of that group. And so a lot of our activities are geared towards that 4th, 5th grade level, but then we have extensions that scale them up to our high school levels or down to our preschool levels if need be. So at these quad day and then every other event that we've done in the past, they have the opportunity to learn, but also to play. So learning to play different games or doing one of the key things to 4-H is also its hands-on learning, experiential learning experiences. And so we do things like doohickey bakes, where the youth get to learn to sort and think like archaeologists and sort artifacts, or create Native American things, such as here they are creating moccasins using sweat socks, or learning about the geospatial component of archaeology and mapping of artifacts and learning how things are laid out on a grid. They also get the opportunity to serve, and so our youth are given the opportunity to go out and volunteer with the Arkansas Archaeological Survey through their summer dig programs, where they can take classes to learn from, again, firsthand from archaeologists, the tools and the trade of archaeology. And so you can see here we have a senior, he is now a college freshman at Michigan Tech, learning to become an industrial archaeologist based on the experiences that he learned through these hands-on experiences offered through the partnership of Arkansas 4-H and the Arkansas Archaeological Survey. And this young lady is now a sophomore in high school, but she had the passion and knowledge to learn the in-depth skills that go into being an archaeologist. Annually, every year in the state of Arkansas, there is a summer training program hosted by the Arkansas Archaeological Survey, where for 2 weeks, lay people, teachers, interested community members can go and work in the field for 2 weeks, learning those skills of being an archaeologist, how to excavate, how to work in a lab, how to recognize site surveying and mapping. And so these events happen in places like Parkin State Park or Pea Ridge. And last year we were in DeQueen. This year, unfortunately, that program had been canceled because of the pandemic, but we are hoping again in June to return to DeQueen to do another in-depth 2-week program. In association with these events, 4-H hosts a day of archaeology where we bring in youth and allow them to, again, visit with archaeologists, see what is happening at the dig site, and try their hands at some educational lessons that we're going to share with you shortly. We also go to counties, and the beauty of being with 4-H is that 4-H is located in every county, and we are all willing to work with our schools for enrichment programs, one of which is the archaeological program, but any other STEM programs. We have agents willing to come to work with you and your students to provide a little respite for you and let us kind of engage the youth in educational opportunities. The 4-H archaeology, I personally will take road trips and go to counties. So I've hosted things in Hempstead County at Historic Washington, Deshay County again at the Hollywood Plantation or the Taylor House, as it is also known. And then Phillips County, we recently did some at the Phillips County Museum, where we spoke with the local museums and did a program there at their library. A lot of what we do in 4-H is based loosely upon the project archaeology, and this is a series that is very comparable if you've been trained in Project Learning Tree or Project Wild, Project Wet. These are designed to be hands-on experiential learning experiences without having to ever put a shovel to the ground, because archaeology is first and foremost a science, and that's what we try to stress in all that we do in 4-H and archaeology, is that we need to learn to present hypotheses and how to expand upon those. And so we stress when we do our lessons, context, ethics, identification of sites, roles of citizens, and even things such as nutrition and shelter. This is a actual project that we did where the youth learned about where our foods come from, and they did historical and prehistoric cooking. So they learned to do things like quinoa. We slow roasted a hind quarter of a venison and did traditional means of cooking with the youth. What we are currently approaching is that Arkansas 4-H is, and all 4-H programs are very focused on project work, where a youth picks a project that they're interested in, and then they go about learning more in-depth detail about a profession or a STEM-related field, or even this leadership. And so you might have some people working on chickens, and they go out and they learn, they spend a whole year learning more about chickens. Well, for us in our STEM role, we chose to look at archaeology. And so we are developing these portfolios, these Arkansas 4-H portfolios that you can see right there and on the screen. And basically what we do is these are designed for teachers that we can take, a county agent can come to you, the educator, and introduce you to what this project offers your youth. And so it'll go over what the basics of 4-H, how we structure our programs, the learning models that we use, what it takes to form a club if you're interested in taking it that next step further. But we also provide resources such as a project sheet, which gives materials, 6 to 7 lessons that you can incorporate into your classroom with little to no cost outlay. Project reflection, so the youth can learn to document what they do and kind of map out what they want to learn, but then what steps they took to learn more on their goals that they set. And then we are trying to tie all of these to the Common Core standards that you as teachers and educators have to cater to. And so we have all of our project portfolios will be tied to social studies, English, math, science, all of the standards that are appropriate. And so we're going to kind of walk through that. So first and foremost, we want to make sure that youth, if they're participating with us, can spell 4-H. And it sounds kind of trite to say that, but a lot of times kids will get caught up in their project work and not kind of realize why what we're doing as this club. And so basically we teach the youth what the pledge is. I pledge my head to clearer thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health to better living for my club, my community, my country, and my world. We want to show the youth how these 4 important aspects make them a better human in the long run. We teach about the mission, the pledge, and the motto to make the best better, so that we can show that how through their involvement in these projects, they not only learn leadership skills, they learn the knowledge skills, but they also become better civic engaged students. Primarily Arkansas, we are, like I said, we are very hands-on. So we stress the experiential learning aspects, targeting life skills. Our lessons are geared to the whole ages and stages, so we have that scalability in everything that we do. Like I said, you can take a lesson, utilize it for your 5th grader, but you could also bring it up to a 12th grade level if need be. And then the essential elements of building a stronger, more well-rounded youth, and so that sense of belonging, independence, generosity, and the mastery of a skill set, and how those all combine to make a better youth, or a more self-confident, reliant, resilient youth. The next portion of these project portfolios, again, are these project sheets. And so, for instance, if you're doing this archaeology one, which I'm promoting, obviously, what we do is we give the overview of what you do in a 4-H archaeology project. So you would learn the importance of protecting and preserving cultural heritage, all about the science involved in archaeological investigations, the importance of context when doing archaeological sciences, and then the importance of our cultural heritage to modern events and the current events. And so we then, as I mentioned, look at it at this ages and stages level. So a beginner 4-H'er, you just simply want them to know what an artifact is, or can they name tribes or cultures from Arkansas. identify historically significant aspects in the history of Arkansas, and then maybe go out on a tour. Say, head up to Parkin or to Toltec Mounds or to a museum and look at the history of Arkansas. Intermediate, we bring them on up a little bit, so they might do a demonstration or a speech on archaeology, or they might participate in the training program that I alluded that the Arkansas Archaeological Survey does, or they might take part as an advanced level in such things as the Archaeolympics, where they compete with college kids on mapping or using an atlatl or reconstructing pottery or different aspects. They might, again, present or teach about the conservation. So these are broad ideas. And then what we continue to do on that research is then, we go on and give them the resources where to look for educational opportunities. Again, like I said, Hampson Museum, Parkin Museum, or Toltec Mounds are places to visit. State parks, there's national curricula opportunities with the National Park Service or the U.S. Forest Service, Project Archeology, the Arkansas Archaeological Society, which is a group of lay people who have an interest in archaeology in the state of Arkansas, and we host monthly talks throughout the state, all over. Or again, the survey, which if you have an opportunity to go back, please take advantage of Amy Warren and Mel Zabecki presented earlier on the engineering aspects of archaeology that they do up in Northwest Arkansas, and the opportunities and lessons that they have available for science teachers. All right. And so this is just something that it's a one-pager that you can give to any youth to kind of introduce them to what they can learn in 4-H archaeology, and what we as Arkansas extension agents can bring to you in your schools to continue and help learn about it. These packages also contain 6 to 7 lessons that you can easily incorporate again into your classroom. And so for the Arkansas archaeology portfolio, we look at things like, why do we do archaeology? So you get the kids thinking about what an archaeologist is. Is it something from TV, for instance? Is it Indiana Jones or Lara Croft? Or is it more, one of my favorite shows, we watch Time Team, where there's archaeologists actually excavating sites, although not exactly in a more realistic term because they're very limited in time. We also look at things like observation and inference. These are basic concepts of all science, in that we need to learn to take our human emotion and our past experiences out of what we look at and do an observation, which is pure what you see, versus inference, where we assign. So if I am looking at a horseshoe sitting in the middle of a field, I have to say, I see a horseshoe, not that, oh, somebody played horseshoes or that there was a horse here. Rather, there is simply an observation of a horseshoe sitting in a field. The cookie excavation lesson, which again Mel and Amy referenced in their talk, is a fun way to have youth learn to map and document what they see without actually being out in a field, where they set a cookie on a grid and they excavate it down and map where all the chocolate chips are. They learn to map on not only the X and Y coordinate, but also as a Z coordinate, so they have the depth as well. We also talk about the context in science, why it's important why this mapping is important, so that you know where artifacts fall, how they relate to each other, and how those work together in a system. We bring it down to the classification. So how do we sort artifacts? What do we look for? What similarities, what traits? We get them thinking along those lines. And then analysis of the artifacts, and taking what we've done with our mapping and our classification and how we use those bits, that evidence, to create a larger picture. And then a fun one is sneezy science, as right now the allergies are again peaking, which is never a good thing during a pandemic. I know that my kids are coughing up a storm right now as the weed seed and weed pollen is up. So we talk about pollen and how archaeologists use pollen to study past climate, food, and cultures. And so, as I said, what is archaeology is the way we open up any program. And so we take this moment to say write or define the word archaeology. And so if you were, say, doing this in a classroom or in a remote sense, you can open it up and open up a whiteboard into your presentation, or simply grab a Zoom tool and have them write, you know, what is archaeology? You know, study of the past, probably be easier with text, study of past through artifacts and things left behind. All right, so you have them define that. Have them draw a picture of what an archaeologist is or the tools they might have, and so you have the opportunity for them to maybe see if they can, you know, rudimentarily draw, for instance, a trowel or a shovel. What we don't want to see are bullwhips or guns or the tools that maybe Indiana Jones or Lara Croft might have had. You know, excavation of a picture of an archaeological site. What does it look like? Most of our archaeological sites are simply square units with items inside of them set up in a grid. Oh, that actually looks like a little person. Sorry about that. And then the steps that archaeologists might take. It's always fun to see what people think in that notion that perhaps an archaeologist, I've seen them where archaeologist gets up out of bed, puts his shoes on, goes out into the field, digs things up, studies them, takes his shoes off and goes back to bed. But let the kids expand on what they think actually happens on an archaeological investigation. Oh, let me clear my annotated screen here, because I didn't realize those were gonna keep on going through my slides. There we go. Then we get to the youth thinking about, again, this is where we do the picture. This is our observation versus our inference. And so this is the Hollywood Plantation outside of Tiller, Arkansas. It's actually in Winchester, Arkansas. And this is a picture of the house and the family that lived there. And we would let the kids make observations and purely observations of this image. And if I had more folks involved, I'd like to hear what you would think. So can they tell, based on observations, they can say the trees have leaves on them. The shadows are cast long. There's a house with 2 porches. There are appear to be 3, 6. There's another person right there, 7 people in this image. They can observe the structures that they witness, the different structures within the homestead here. And then you get them to look a little closer. And so we will then do our inferences with the youth. And so we have them infer what time of the year would this picture have been taken. Can they infer that based on the level of trees without limbs or without leaves? The way the folks are dressed in southeast Arkansas, I would say that we can pretty much safely assume that this is not in August, right? I know that I would not be wearing quite that outfit in August, even in the time frame that this picture may have been taken. Can they guess what time frame this picture was taken? Is it the 1900s? Is it 1970? Have them look for anomalies in this photo and try to explain it. And this is kind of a one that I had fun. If you look at this tree, you see this tree has some leaf and some not, and you can almost discern a line. But you can also look at the shadows of these folks. And so based on this, and on the lesson itself, it actually has the compass arrow, so we know that north is over to the right side of this image. But they can tell what time of the day the picture is taken by the shadows. However, when you get to this other couple, the shadows have shifted. And so you can get them to speculate again as to why this might be. And as far as we can gather from this image and what we know of this picture is, if you look, there's a seam. And so we think that this picture was spliced together at some point just to give a panoramic shot of this thing. It almost looks like some of the folks are in morning clothes versus normal day-to-day clothing. There is a servant leaning against the kitchen L of this home. And so this house is actually the same house that when the very first slide on the quad day, you can see the condition of it. And now this Taylor House homestead is been reconstructed back to looking just as it is in this picture. This is the oldest plantation house in southeast Arkansas, and was one of the largest landholders and slaveholders in the state of Arkansas. And so it's a fairly significant location in the history of our communities down here. Following up, once we get these youth going through some of these lessons and broadening out and examining what they've done in archaeology, it's very important that our youth learn to kind of keep track of what they're doing on their own. And so we provide project reflection guides so that the youth can not only set their goals and talk about the goals that they have, but then also document any kind of experiences they have. And in 4-H, one of the things that this eventually leads to is youth creating what we call 4-H record books or congressional award applications that they can apply for competition and for awards in their life. It also helps the youth when it comes time to apply for college to have kind of a way to document all of the work that they have done in addition to what they do in school, to kind of bolster up their college applications or their resumes when going forward. It's a way for the youth to document service hours or leadership experiences that they might have, or just kind of some of the experiences related to learning that they have encountered along their project careers. And again, as I mentioned, we also try to tie these in to your Common Core, so social studies, science, and mathematics. And so this is just kind of a way we're doing it as extension folks. We are not as skilled at looking at your multitude of Common Core methods. And so for the past few months, we have been taking a concerted effort to try to tie everything that we do in 4-H to the Common Core so that you can request things and our agents can come and help you and kind of guide you. And if you know what you're trying to teach, what lessons, what projects we can do to help with you beyond even just the Arkansas archaeological connection that we do. If you have any questions or want to learn more about how 4-H can assist you in doing programs such as the archaeology projects or any other project area or leadership, citizenship, leadership engagement that you would like to have incorporated into your school, please feel free to contact me. My cell number is there as we are all working remote and I'm usually on the road at 870-224-5478, or reach out to me via the internet email. Or contact any of your county extension offices and just say, hey, we're interested in what 4-H can help us do in our schools. And we are all 75 counties of us, we are all willing to help get you guys through this difficult time. Thank you for everything you do with our youth, and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of this conference.